I'm reading this book right now. It was written in 2014, The End of Greatness. What America can't have and doesn't want another great president. And while it sounds negative, the book is actually really nice because it talks a lot about great qualities that have made great presidents. So this author has identified 3 presidents that are indisputably great in U.S. history. Can you guess which ones they are? I'll give you a second. You may be thinking George Washington. You're right. You may be thinking Abraham Lincoln. You're right. Third one surprised me, may surprise you. You may be thinking JFK. Not in this guy's book. You may be thinking Ronald Reagan. Not in this guy's book. FDR. Washington, Lincoln, and FDR. Each about 70 years apart. Each in the respective different centuries, 18th, 19th, and 20th. What makes these presidents great? So, each of them had a commonality of 3 C's. Each of them had a crisis. Each of them had character. And each of them had the capacity to handle it. So, let's talk about Washington's crisis. Washington, despite the fact that he presided over crisis without being president for the last 20, 30 years with regard to several wars that he fought in, the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War, when he became president, there were no precedents. So many of the precedents that presidents operate on now is based on him. He denied the ability to become a monarch because they fled monarchy and he didn't want the presidency to turn into that. He left after 2 terms, and that's a precedent that has been obeyed almost by every other president until in the 1900s, the mid-1900s, after FDR, they made it a constitutional thing that the president can only have 2 terms. The real crisis in Washington's case, when he was president from 1789 to 1797, is that there was no precedent. This country was new. It was a union of 13 states that were very wary and skeptical of ceding to central authority, and so he had to go through unprecedented waters. Even John Adams had a precedent as a second president to follow, and all the future presidents, though their crises were bigger in a way, war, Civil War, World War II, they were able to, they already had a functioning government. They already had what's called a polity, which is essentially like something that's already working with regard to government in place. So Washington had the character to make this happen. He was very tall, which commanded respect. He was 6'2", I think, and the average height of American men at that time, I believe, was 5'7". He had a natural stature and authority, and he had earned his stripes through war. I believe twice during his military career, he had the horse shot out from underneath him. So he's actually braved death. And he was able to navigate through these uncharted territories. What was Lincoln's crisis? Well, obviously it was the Civil War. That was a tremendous crisis, probably the greatest crisis the country has gone through because it imploded on itself. And there was a huge existential question and answer of what would this country look like? Would it be one that's divided between 2 countries, the U.S. and the Confederacy? Or would it be a unified union without slavery? Or would it be a union with the South having slavery and the North not having slavery? Well, as it so turned out, after 800,000 people, I believe on both sides, died, slavery was abolished, and Lincoln was able to take the difficult decisions to ensure that that happened by continuing with the effort of the Union Army and so forth. And that was his lasting mark on transforming America. Now, with regard to FDR, he was the president from 1933 to 1945. He was a 4-termer, and he died in 45. What made him great? Well, and the more modern you come with regard to presidents, the more people start to disagree. Like if we were to talk about any of the last 2 or 3 presidents, people are going to have much more polarized opinions than they would if we were to go 30 years into the future and then look at those same presidents. So FDR is still relatively modern. He's of the last 100 years. He started the New Deal. So he made a lot of government agencies to deal with helping with economic assistance for people, creating jobs. Some people say that stalled the recession and made it last longer because it stifled individual imperative and then allowed people's money to be taken by taxes to be reinvested into these same programs. And some people think that it was a necessary stimulus that helped people come out, without which no growth would have occurred at all. So that was all there on the economic front. Now, on the military front, in 1941, after Pearl Harbor, the U.S. entered World War II, and they lent the deciding hand in helping Germany and France defeat, not Germany and France, helping Britain and France defeat Germany. They lent the deciding hand, or maybe they did it more single-handedly, they took out Japan as well. So these German and Japanese forces, which were hostile at the time, are now allies of the U.S. And Japan is not a Western democracy, but it engages very heavily in trade, economically, and so forth with the Western democracies. And Germany is a Western democracy. America also came out as the world superpower at that time, and the Soviet Union came shortly thereafter, maybe at the same time, as a competing superpower. But before World War II, America was not a superpower. It was just a country. It was just a country on the western side of the world, flanked by 2 oceans, that was just building itself. Since World War II, it has become the dominant force in the world, especially since the Soviet Union collapsed. So FDR found the country in 1933 in the midst of the Great Depression, in which there were breadlines, tremendous unemployment, people wandering from town to town to find work, people putting signs at the front of the town saying, "Don't come here if you're looking for work." Right? It was a depression the likes of which we haven't seen, because presumably if you're watching this, you had not lived during the Great Depression. So he entered the presidency then, and then at the end of it, the economy was great. We defeated the Nazis, and World War II had finished, and America was a superpower. So if you're to look at how the country transformed in his time, it was actually very tremendous. Now, many people say that the Depression ended because of World War II, not because of the New Deal, because of the need to produce arms and the national effort and so forth. And whatever it may be, he did preside from a change from here to here. And he also started Social Security, which exists to this day. He was a man of great intellect and great manner of communication. He was the first, or one of the first people to use the radio to broadcast his thoughts and connect with the people, which is not used nowadays. Actually, they don't use radio. They use a lot of other things like internet, podcast, television, but radio was the medium at the time, and he used it. That was the cutting edge of technology for mass distribution. So each of these presidents had a crisis, and they were able to get through them, and with their intelligence and their courage and their capacity to do as best as they could what was right at the time, they transformed the country fundamentally. Well, I don't know if fundamentally is the right word, but Washington essentially inherited nothing and then created something out of it. Lincoln inherited a divided country and then unified it. FDR inherited a country which was in a horrible state, and then at the end of his term, it emerged as the superpower. So those are good things to learn. I think that the author of this book interviewed Jimmy Carter, and he said, Jimmy Carter's 39th president in the 70s, he says, "Why have we not had a great president since FDR?" And Jimmy Carter said, "Well, there's no war. There's no major war, at least," right? So the crises that we have now are smaller in scope and scale than the ones before, which are truly existentially threatening. And a lot of the presidents who have done fairly well during peacetime, Reagan, Clinton, they're not regarded as the same because their challenges weren't as significant. So what does this mean for us today? Well, it's a good lesson in history. It's a good lesson in what makes these people iconic. It's a good lesson in how good we have it today comparatively, because there's no existential threat at the level of which FDR saw, at the level of which Lincoln saw, certainly. So we're doing good in a sense, in the long arc of history. It may look sad that you need a war to unify a country, but you might not really need a war. Maybe that's just the way it's been so far. Maybe we can find other common causes. Maybe a leader today could speak to things that unify people rather than divide them. Maybe a leader today can find things of nobility that we can all strive towards. I know JFK was able to really energize the nation with his moon speech. We choose to go to the moon by the end of the decade, not because it's easy, because it's hard, because that will solidify our efforts and organize our efforts, something to that effect. It's a very big ambition, and he died, but 6 months before the decade ended, man landed on the moon. Maybe we can look to bigger and greater things than wars and crises, and create things that goals that have national unity within them, so that it doesn't need to be that we divide among ourselves, which often ends up happening when there is nothing unifying. You know, they say that you don't know what you have until you've lost it. My dad told me that. It's true. And in the same way, when there's no great problem to face, when there's no hardship to face, people end up turning on each other. It's just the way things are. You know, when a family goes through, if there's a threatening, opposing family, the family is very well bound together. They respect each other, they like each other. Whatever differences they have, they don't take them as seriously. But when there is no external threat, then, oh, you didn't wash the dishes. Oh, you didn't do this. Oh, you said this to me. And small things become huge deals. It's natural. It is very hard to be immune from that. So, those are some qualities of great presidents, and hopefully, again, we can find things that unify us so that we don't implode on ourselves and create a crisis that is going to need a great leader to emerge in order to solve it. So, I'm Jay Shaw. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, please share it. Please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. And hope you have a good day. I'll see you later.